When you do your show, Reads and Deeds, are you thinking about expanding the jazz audience, turning people on to jazz?
For sure. I mean, the approach that I have with my program is, I want to build upon the fan base that's already there and enhance enhance their experience, while of course bringing in new listeners that are, otherwise unfamiliar with jazz or just getting into the waters per se. And it seems like my station operates very similar to WPFU, which is where we have basically volunteer students. They're getting college credit for this, but they're not getting paid, and they are bringing their libraries to the table. And it is up to them to do the programming. There's no program director who is telling them exactly what to play. Our program director assists them. Of course, we schedule them, and we're there as a reference. But it's up to them to do what they want, just like it's up to me to paint my show how I want to do it. So, the way that I go about that is I like to tie the music schools that are around Boston into my show heavily. So I like to do a lot of promotion, cross-promotion with Berkeley and NEC. Actually, during the Checkout series that they were doing over at Berkeley, I had Dana Stevens and Walter Smith and Jaleel Shaw come to do an interview on my show to promote what was going on at Cafe 939 at Berkeley. So that's like my way of bringing other students who maybe are not jazz students into the music and getting introduced to jazz. And when I program my show, I'm thinking about that as well. I like to, have deep cuts, bootlegs, underground Coltrane recordings. Luckily I'm privy to having that from my dad. Thank goodness, that I'm able to share some of that with people that people might not be able to hear otherwise. So I like to include that. But on the other hand, I also like to include things that are maybe a little bit on the fringe. There's a lot of debate. Is Robert Glasper experiment considered jazz? You could talk about that for years about if that's considered jazz enough to be on a jazz station. But I think that it's important to include some things like that sometimes, because that's what's going to pull those listeners in to jazz that maybe wouldn't come into it otherwise, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my approach, and I like to cover all the bases. And again, I'm only on with my jazz program 2 hours a week, like Willard. So I understand that wanting to have your own identity, but I also agree with Thurston that you need to be able to understand what's going on the other side. And when I interned at Sirius Radio with Mark Ruffin with Real Jazz, I really, really got that. And I brought that into my show a little bit more after I had that experience. And now I try to toe both sides, as much as possible.
Okay.